Awesome. All right, welcome everyone. So where we're going to be kicking off, and I think it's fair if I take the first paragraph, give Howard some time to get his feet under him. Uh, fair. So it says, you may think this is an extreme case. Oh, I don't even know if I said the page. Goodness gracious, page 37, second full paragraph. You may think this is an extreme case. Now, I want to point out the case that we are talking about is the case of our friend Jim. Jim was that lovely guy who skipped out on work on Monday, shows up on Tuesday, had a couple words with the boss, and man, he is having a day. He goes out to the country to sell his car, and he gets a case of the suddenlies. The case of the suddenlies, as in the obsession of the mind, a thought that comes and takes him back again and again to the first drink. And his thought, what happens in his moment of suddenly, was, you know what? I could put a little whiskey in my milk. And it says, you may think that is an extreme case. And I always point out, yeah, I don't know about you guys. I read that and I had Howard's response. I'm like, ugh, gross. Ugh, whiskey and milk? No, thank you. That is disgusting. Who would do that? And then I forget that like Kahlua and White Russians, and there's like lots of alcohol that has milk in it. And let me be honest with you, what was my real problem with that? It was the milk. It was the milk that icked me out. Listen, I'm a cheese girl, but I don't really like milk. Anyway, I was going to tell you about how I did Nesquik when I was a child, which is how I did alcohol as an adult. Go hard, unsupervised. Woo, you know.
Well, that was Jim's real problem. Was he had a problem with milk? It
Yeah,
wasn't the alcohol. It was
yeah.
the
Jim's real problem was that he was a milk drinker. I'm just kidding. I'm not judging. If you're drinking milk, I'm glad you're here. Enjoy not having osteoporosis. I don't know. I don't know if there's a correlation. I clearly kicked off this big book study in a weird mood, and then all of you have had to deal with it, and I apologize profusely. Hopefully, Howard will level us off, but I have a feeling that's not going to be the case.
yeah.
Yeah. So you may think this is an extreme case, the whiskey and the milk. To us, it is not far-fetched for this kind of thinking, and I want to emphasize the thinking. It is not the drinking that was his problem, despite our judging him for the milk. But it really was his thinking, the thought that brought him back to the first drink. For this type of thinking has been characteristic of every single one of us. So we can take this moment and ask ourselves, have we had experiences like Jim? Have we had experiences where we're out there living our life and I had a case of the suddenlies? And I've got a glass in my hand, a pipe in my mouth, I'm popping pills, or I'm engaging in an addictive behavior, whatever brings you to this study. And it's like, how did that even happen? Do we have any experiences like this? Because if we have any experiences like this, man, that is characteristic of every single one of us. If I am trying to diagnose alcoholism, or use this book to diagnose addiction or whatever compulsive behavior brings you to this study, there are two symptoms that I can use to diagnose it. It is the obsession of the mind and the allergy of the body. And so do I have any experiences of the obsession of the mind? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to treat that spiritual malady, but I'm going to diagnose it with the obsession and the allergy. So it says, we have sometimes reflected more than Jim did upon the consequences. So Jim didn't have he had a bit of a vague idea. This might not be a good idea, but no, I'm doing this on a full stomach. How could it go wrong? So we might have had more reflection on the consequences, on what could go wrong. But there was always the curious mental phenomenon that parallel with our sound reasoning, there inevitably ran some insanely trivial excuse for taking the first drink. Our sound reasoning failed to hold us in check. The insane idea won out. The next day, we could ask ourselves in all earnestness and sincerity how it could have happened. And that is a paragraph for a long time that I was like, oh boy, those are some big words. Those are some big words put together in rapid succession. What? What are we talking about? So when it says, but there was always the curious mental phenomenon, That curious mental phenomenon is a synonym, or we got to get Kathy, cinnamon. She's over that. No, she's not. A synonym for the obsession of the mind. So if we see curious mental phenomenon, we can write mental obsession. And it says that parallel with our sound reasoning, there inevitably ran some insanely trivial excuse for taking that first drink. That insanely trivial excuse is just the mental obsession. And that our sound reasoning, now that sound reasoning is my willpower, my playing the tape to the end, my thinking through the drink. It is me thinking of the consequences. It is my willpower. It is my rationale. It is my fear of consequences. That is my sound reasoning. But the insane idea won out. Now, this is a paragraph that has carried more and more meaning the longer that I've been sober, because I'm a little bit of a slow learner, y'all. It struck me one day what the true meaning of this paragraph is. So has anyone here ever seen the movie Tron? We got almost no one. By the way, I haven't seen it either. But what always comes to mind to me is this. And hold on, I'll bring it up. I'll pop me in the corner. Boom! It is this. The movie Tron. Now again, I haven't seen the movie Tron, but like this, my brain sort of works in metaphors and pictures, and then y'all have to deal with it. So I apologize. But it's like what happens is I put down the drink. And as soon as I put down the drink, a race begins. And if you remember in the movie Tron, they have these like light motorcycles that they're racing in the video game. And I always think about that. And so what happens is I see that first motorcycle, that sound reasoning. So I put down the drink, and what starts is this race, and the sound reasoning is this motorcycle that is, I don't want to drink. I want to stay sober. I need to stay sober. I have to stay sober. Sobriety is important to me. I want the life that sobriety offers. I do not want the consequences. And that is my sound reasoning, and it is off and running. But also in that same race is the mental obsession, the insane idea, the thought that this time will be different, the thought that nobody will ever know, the thought that, my problem was alcohol, but I can smoke crack like a lady, the thought that, F it, F this. And so if you've ever come to Alcoholics Anonymous or Cocaine Anonymous or whatever 12-step fellowship you are a part of, and you've heard them say it's not a race, I disagree vehemently. What this paragraph is saying is that it is a race. So the sound reasoning running parallel with the obsession of the mind, they're racing each other. And when it talks about our sound reasoning failed to hold us in check, the insane idea won out. What it is saying, it is not a matter of if I drink again. It is a matter of when. Now, I got another slide, but worse than another slide, I got props. I got motorcycles. This is Eileen's fault. She mailed me motorcycles. So we can take it up with her. We can send her a strongly worded email, or we can write inventory on it. Either way. And so if you're an alcoholic like I'm an alcoholic, let's say this is my sound reasoning, and I burn my life to the ground. If you guys know what it's like to sober up right after you've done some real damage, maybe you've given yourself a real scare, and you're like, man, I'm never going to do it again. Well, that sound reasoning gets a bit of a head start. You know what I'm saying? It's got a mile out. It's a mile out in this race. But the problem is the obsession of the mind. For some reason, it's got turbo boosters. I often joke that it's like I'm in a race car bed with my sound reasoning, and I'm up against a race car. You know what I'm like, I'm doing great. Look at me puttering along with my self-will. I'm going to meetings. I'm thinking through the drink. I'm playing the tape to the end. Vroom! And I'm drunk. Vroom! And I'm high. Listen, I know I won't say that this is the stupidest metaphor I've ever had, because I have a lot of potential. I have a lot of potential to come up with some more of them, but it is a doozy. And so it does not matter how far ahead how far ahead my sound reasoning placed me, how much knowledge that I have. Man, I can study the book. I can memorize paragraphs. I can memorize passages. I can listen to Chris R. on repeat. It does not matter the knowledge that I have. I can be threatened by a doctor, threatened by a judge, threatened by my family. It does not matter the consequences that I have. It is not a matter of if I drink again, but when. Because this, my obsession of the mind, man, it has got turbo boosters. It's got nitrous. And so what do I need to do? I need to find a way to stop the race. And one more silly little visual. I have this one, and I asked an image maker to make up a personification of the obsession of the mind racing my sound reasoning. And it was just a striking visual. This idea that I am all my virtues, all the things that matter, all the things that are worthwhile, and they are not enough to propel me forward long enough to win the race. I will relapse. The obsession of the mind is coming, and it's hitting. And that then tells us the intensity with which I need to work the steps. So when people say it's not a race, I vehemently, I disagree. It is a race, but I'm not racing you. Although some of my sponsees know I will put them in races. If they're on amends, I'm like, we're doing an amender. First to 10 amends wins, always with their consent. But I mean, I like to have fun with it. But I'm not racing other people. What I am erasing is the inevitability of that first drink. And I've got to find a way to stop the race, because it does not matter how well that I'm doing on my own, spinning my tires. I will drink again. I will use again. I will relapse. How do we stop the race? The way that we have to stop the race in 12 steps is a spiritual awakening. And the way that we achieve a spiritual awakening is through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. So what do I have to do? If I have stopped drinking, this race is on. If I have sobered up, this race is on. If I have put down that compulsive behavior, the race is on. I have got to get through those steps as quickly and thoroughly, and those things do exist together, as quickly and thoroughly as I can, so that I can stop the race and experience the spiritual awakening. So that is one of my favorite paragraphs, because I have pictures and I have props. And by the way, these little motorcycles, they're self-propelling. You can go like that and they'll roll. So when they arrived, I had a whole lot of time by myself sitting on the floor going vroom, because I am a 30-something-year-old woman. Over to you, Howard.
You gotta be kidding. If I think I'm gonna add to that, I got a couple of screen shares myself. Let me get these up here. A couple of absolutely not. But you mentioned that paragraph has taken on more dimensions with you over the years, for you over the years. And it's ironic that that paragraph comes before this one, because this one, I always say the same thing, that this paragraph has taken on added depth when I read it a little bit differently. So let me try this and see what you guys think about the change that might take place in the wording of this paragraph. It says, in some circumstances, we've gone out deliberately to get drunk. Justified, feeling ourselves justified. Now, there's the insane thinking, the justification that I have a good reason for going out to drink. Here's the reasons: I'm nervous, I'm angry, I'm worried, depressed, jealousy. Underline all those words. Nervous, anger, worry, depressed, jealousy. Those are words to describe a restless, irritable, discontented disposition. I am restless and irritable and discontented. I have a spiritual malady. So if I have a spiritual malady, all of these things are lies. These are just excuses. So when I say that it's justified, it's not justified. It's a lie. Anytime an alcoholic takes a drink, it's a lie. Okay? But even in this type of beginning, we are obliged to admit that our justification, there it is, the lie, for a spree was insanely insufficient. You bet it was insanely insufficient because we've crossed over that line. We made a decision based on a lie, and we've gone from sane to insane in the light of what always happened. And here's where it gets interesting. I'm going to suggest that you highlight it from this point on to the end of the paragraph, and let me read through it, and then I'm going to point out what I think is the point of discussion. For discussion, we now see that when we deliberately, drank deliberately, drinking deliberately means we had a reason for it. I'm depressed. I'm angry. I'm jealous. I'm pissed off. I'm afraid of something. I'm filled with guilt and shame and remorse. Ooh, gee, those things should be inventoried, I think. Maybe that will come up with some ideas about why we drink if we look at that shit. But the point being, when I set out to drink deliberately, and the word Bill uses here is instead of casually. Casually means I just kind of slipped into it. I was restless, irritable, discontented. I thought about the ease and comfort that comes from that first drink. I give in to the obsession. The next thing I know, I'm drunk. So that is a description of drinking casually. And for an alcoholic, that describes the way we drink all the time. And if I drink saying I have a reason, I'm justified, I'm angry, I'm afraid, I'm filled with guilt and shame, I'm full of shit. It's what it is because it's a lie. So the word shouldn't be when we began to drink deliberately instead of casually. I suggest the words should be as well as casually because the end result is the same. And here's what I mean. It says there was little serious effective thought during the period of premeditation of what the terrific consequences might be. You want an example of what little effective thought looks like? Hold on to your place at this page and turn to page 24. If you go to page 24, paragraph 2 is a perfect description of the little effective thought that precedes the first drink and what happens. He says the almost certain consequences that follow taking even a glass of beer do not cloud into the mind to deter us. If these thoughts occur, thoughts, consequences, if they occur, they're hazy and readily supplanted, replaced with the old worn out idea that this time we can handle ourselves like other people. There is a complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on a hot stove. So that means that if I think of the consequences and they get me to not take that drink, it's an effective thought. But when it comes to alcohol, I don't have the ability to make those effective thoughts with any regularity. There are at certain times, because the previous paragraph on page 24 says that at certain times I can do that. But I can't hang my hat on that because it's not an official excuse. It's an unreliable higher power is to remember the consequences. Remember what happens when I take that drink. It doesn't always work. So what we're talking about on page back, let's go back to page 37, is little effective thought, means little successful thought that would convince me not to take the drink. And I contend that whether I start out drinking because I'm an alcoholic who's restless, irritable, and discontented, and I convince myself of the ease and comfort that comes immediately from that first drink, so I give in to the obsession and I trigger the allergy, there's casual. There's what happens when an alcoholic drinks casually. Or, gee, I'm really pissed off. I gotta take a drink. Either way, there's ineffective thought to convince me otherwise. Paige, you can take it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And yeah, what we're talking about is the obsession of the mind. And it doesn't matter the lie that it tells us, whether, as Howard described it, it's the slipping in or the efforts. And for me, that deliberate drinking is the efforts. So, has anyone here ever drank at somebody? You know, F you, I am gonna burn it to the ground. Well, that'll show them. You know, anyone here ever drink at worry, like fear, like I cannot stand. I don't know. I just need to take a drink, right? What about the depression? You know, I will say we are human beings that will take a depressant to try to alleviate our depression and be like, what? Why did that not help? What? And then jealousy, like that, like, oh, that, you know, when you're insecure and your insides are tearing you up, and like it is, and I don't know what it is, the it does not matter, but it is not fair, and they, doesn't matter who they are, they got it, you know what I mean? And you drink at that. Now I'm going to point something out. See, I'll take that drink deliberately. That'll teach you, that'll show you, that'll fix it, yeah. And in a moment, there's a bit that first, you know, we get first drink, first 3 drink glow, first crack hoot glow. Okay, that's actually not how crack works, but I'm just trying to work the metaphor. But I mean, it does its own thing. And actually, I am somebody that'll like, I will show you. I'm so insecure about how well your life is going. I will smoke crack at that. I've done that. I've done that. And if you're wondering, did I come out of that crack bench like winning the Nobel Prize for my intellectual contributions? No, I don't know where my shoes went. You know, that's what happened. I mean, maybe you guys were able to aim higher, but the I get that. Yeah, like a lady, pinkies up behind the dumpster. Yell no. But I'll drink at you. I'll use at you to treat the anger, to treat the worry, the depression, the jealousy, and in that moment, that first bit of relief, it'll work. But it doesn't work. It is not a permanent solution. You see, I wake up the morning after, fueled with that self-hatred. That anger is worse. The regret is fueling every. Do you know what I mean? It's like the thing that we talk about using the hammer to cure the headache. That is exactly who I am. I have like used the worst possible solution to my problem, but I keep going back to it. Now, a rational, sane person would say, Paige, it seems that alcohol is causing most of your problems, or the problems that are not directly caused by alcohol, it is exacerbating them. And to which I would probably say, I don't know what that word means, makes worse. Sometimes I have this other big book study where I get a word of the day, and it taught me, and then people will guess the word of the day. It taught me how weird my vocabulary is. Yeah, exactly. We will isolate to fix our loneliness. The thing that I am using to treat the problem makes the problem worse, but I am incapable of seeing it. And that is the power of the obsession of the mind. And even if there is a period of premeditation, as it talks about at the end of that paragraph, it says, regardless of how or why, there is little serious or effective, and Howard like clicked in on this, effective. Any sort of trying to play the tape, any sort of thinking of the consequences, any sort of weighing out the options is not effective. It is not effective. And I need something that is effective. Now, I love that you popped this over to page 24. And we were talking about that at certain times. And I always talk about this idea, like if I was going to go skydiving and my skydiving instructor was like, all righty, we got this parachute, and this bad boy, let me tell you, about 60% of effective. 60% of the time, it works every time. Oh, I wish I could remember that exact Talladega Nights quote. Oh, it's I don't know. If you're not first, you're last. That's not true here in recovery. That's not how that works. But it's that idea, like who here is jumping out of the airplane with a 60% successful parachute? And I'm going to have a little pause just because in case somebody is, I really want you to stick around after the meeting. Please let us help you get connected. You don't have to feel the way that you're feeling, you know. But that's what it's like. It's not a matter of if it fails, my mental defense. It is a matter of when it fails. It will fail. And when it says the terrific consequences may be, I tell you, I'm not an international baccalaureate. I said that, wasn't even sure what that is. But I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not winning all these. Like nobody's giving me the Emmy or the Oscar or the Grammy for my amazing, especially not a Grammy, I promise you, for my achievements while I'm on a bender. It's the terrific I always thought was an interesting word, but terrific is the scope. What might be a more fitting is the horrific consequences might be. The horrific consequences are staring us in the face, and we do it anyways. We do it anyways. That's the power of the obsession of the mind. All right, so it goes on to say, now this is I feel bad because I feel like I went long on that paragraph, and I feel like I should, but I'll give you I'll save the fun history fact about the Jaywalker for you. I got that for you. I don't know nothing about what other story this might have been. I know nothing about it. Stay tuned. Harriet's got the fun fact. So it says our behavior is as absurd and incomprehensible with respect to the first drink. And I want to point out the absurd and incomprehensible behavior is the obsession of the mind. It is what happens before I take the first drink. The fact that I go back to it. The fact that I go back to it beyond a shadow of a doubt, knowing it ruins my life. As that of an individual with a passion, say, for jaywalking, it's our guy. I'm so sorry. It's the jaywalker. Oh, I'm in the way. I made this because when I am left unsolicited, or not unsolicited, when I am left without with a little bit of spare time, I do things like this. Unsupervised. That's the word I was looking for. When I am unsupervised, this is what happens. So let's talk about this jaywalker. Now, for those, I've noticed that in certain parts of the world, the term jaywalker isn't a term because it came from the United States. The automobile agency lobbied for that to be a term. I feel rude because that does feel like a history fun fact, and that's not. That's for Howard. That's my bad. But for those that don't know what a jaywalker is somebody who's walking in traffic where there's not a crosswalk and where they're not supposed to technically cross legally. Because there's places in the world where it's like, you cross or you cross, it's fine. So that's what that term means. So it says, our behavior is as absurd and incomprehensible with the first drink as that of an individual with a passion, say, for jaywalking. Listen, my life, I'm not a raging alcoholic and drug addict. I'm just passionate, it's a passion. It says he gets a thrill out of skipping in front of fast moving vehicles. And I know the screen share thing. It's a lot today. It's a lot today. I'm just gonna pop up the cycle just real quick, because when it talks about him getting a thrill out of skipping in front of fast moving vehicles, we can make a note that what he is after that first drink. That's what he's after, that ease and comfort. So you can write ease and comfort, because that is what I am drinking for. I am a relief-seeking missile, and the jaywalker, he's going to get that. He's getting that in traffic, no judgment. It says he enjoys himself for a few years in spite of friendly warnings. Up to this point, you would label him as a foolish chap having queer ideas of fun. So he's it's a little bit of a weird hobby, but not ours to judge. You do you, bud. It says luck then deserts him, and he is slightly injured several times in succession. Now, how do we get injured several times in succession? Well, for us, it is often a sign that we have the allergy of the body, because most people stop drinking before they hurt themselves. Do you know what I mean? And by the way, we're talking about the jaywalker getting injured. We're talking about the jaywalker getting hit by cars. So it's a physical injury. And of course, if we're an alcoholic, we know what it's like to wake up with bruises. We don't know how we got. But we can go deeper than just a physical injury. There are more injuries than simply physical. And so what we're saying is we're drinking ourselves into consequences we did not want to have. And why? Because I have the allergy of the body. It says you would expect him if he were normal. By the way, normal as in not having this illness, not bad or immoral, but non-alcoholic, or in this case, jaywalkaholic. I didn't think about how to say that. You would expect him, if he were normal, to cut it out. The consequences are piling up, and we would expect him not to run out to the street again. It says presently he is hit again, and this time has a fractured skull. Now, as we're going through, we're seeing that the consequences are getting more and more and more severe, more and more serious. Presently, he is hit again, and this time has a fractured skull. Within a week after leaving the hospital, a fast-moving trolley car breaks his arm. And it's getting worse. He tells you he has decided to stop jaywalking for good. And so if we go to the cycle, what we see is the firm resolution. I am not going to jaywalk again. I'm not going to drink again. I'm not going to gamble again. I'm not going to use again. I'm never going to do it again. But what inevitably happens? But in a few weeks, he breaks both legs. So before he broke those legs, he had a thought that told him this time would be different. Nobody will ever know. I'm just going to run in traffic for 5 minutes. Do you know what I'm saying? This time will be different. So he had the obsession of the mind. And then the allergy of the body took him, and the consequence was the broken leg. So it says, on through the years, this conduct continues, accompanied by his continual promises to be careful, or to keep off the streets altogether. Now, that being careful is trying to exert some power over the physical allergy, and it does not work. But his continual promises to keep off the street altogether is him trying to exert some power over the obsession of the mind. But it doesn't work. I have no power. The jaywalker has no power. Finally, he can no longer work. His wife gets a divorce, and he is held up to ridicule. He tries every known means to get the jaywalking idea out of his head. Every known means to stay sober. He's swearing off. He never wants to do it again. He wants to stay sober. He does not want to run in the streets. He does not want to do it. He shuts himself up in an asylum, hoping to mend his ways. Asylum treatments at a rehab, detox, seeing a psychologist, a psychiatrist, IOP, as they call them in the States, outpatient treatment. He's throwing everything he can at this. But the day he comes out, he races in front of a fire engine, which breaks his back. Why would that happen? The obsession of the mind. The obsession of the mind took him back again and again and again. And that fire engine, which breaks his back. Such a man would be crazy, wouldn't he? I'm just going to real quick. This is so silly. Go back to the recovered jaywalker again. That's why there's a fire truck in the background, because And so this person's real problem, or his main problem, is not that there are cars in traffic that are hitting him. That's a problem. But the logical, sane, reasonable thing, based on the consequences, based on the worsening progression of his illness, is to not run out into traffic. And if you're wondering, Paige, have people told you to go and play in traffic? Yep, they have. They absolutely have. But his problem is not that there's traffic. His problem is that he is an obsession of the mind that takes him back again and again and again to run out in traffic, to run into those streets. So my problem is not that I have the allergy of the body. That's not great. But my real problem is that I have an obsession of the mind that takes me back to that place that is where I'm getting run over by cement trucks, by fire trucks, by trolley cars. I'm getting knocked over. So my problem is the obsession of the mind. And what we do, again, just to be very clear, what we do is we treat the spiritual malady. The spiritual malady is what is fueling the obsession of the mind and fueling this jaywalker to run out into traffic. And if that conscious sense of separateness from a power greater than myself, a conscious sense of separateness from God is treated with a spiritual awakening, a conscious contact, I have no need to run out in traffic. And if I have no need to run out in traffic, I won't get hit. The obsession is gone. And if the obsession is gone, I don't take that first one. If I don't take that first one, it doesn't set off the allergy. I am so sorry that I handed off to you at some real weird points, but over to you, Howard.
Well, let's talk about you mentioned history. Let's talk about the history for the hell of it, because every story in this chapter represents some kind of history or somebody in history. Who is the Jaywalker? Well, I used to explain this as saying Bill gives an example of how our behavior is absurd and incomprehensible by being absurd and incomprehensible, which is telling us a story of a stupid jaywalker. But that's not the history. The history is that this story came from Sam Shoemaker. Sam Shoemaker used to, in an effort to describe the alcoholic to people who just can't grasp the notion of the obsession and the allergy, he tells them this story about the jaywalker as a way for them to wrap their minds around something that doesn't make any sense, but it still is so. So that's where this story came from. But where did the term come from? Jaywalker. You ever think about that? Well, it came from the term jay drivers, which was used to describe back at the turn of the century, the turn of the 18th to the 1900s, around that time, they would call people who drove horse-drawn carriages on the wrong side of the street. They'd call them J drivers, or they'd call them Rube drivers, or they'd call them greenhorn drivers. And that easily got extended to pedestrians. And the first known use of it was in 1909 in Kansas, in the Chanute Daily Journal, wrote an article about jaywalkers. And that was the first time in print that occurred. So that's the history of the term. Jaywalker came from Jay driver, which means an idiot, a stupid, a tin horn driver who doesn't know which side of the street to drive on. Very much like me when I went to Ireland. That would describe me to a T. But that's the history. Okay, there it is for the jaywalker. And the only other thing I'll add, because Paige did a great job of it, is on the third line in this paragraph. It says he gets a thrill out of jumping in front of fast-moving vehicles. He gets a thrill. Does that sound anything like men and women drink because they like the effect created by it? He likes the effect created by running in front of fast-moving vehicles, fire engines, buses, trolley cars, which are just buses that run on a cable line. The point being, they do it because they like the effect it creates. And that's the effect that they like, so they do it over and over and over again. Paige, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Okay, cool. It was cool if you wanted to take the next paragraph.
No,
All right.
nah, I'll come back to it afterwards.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. So it says, you may think our illustration is too ridiculous. I will point out that is the second time we're like, hey, Bill was probably feeling a little defensive, where he's like, oh, like calling me out for my examples. Oh, and one of the things is I had heard that Bill had written up an example of the jaywalkers as the shoplifting story. I heard that from Rob. And if you hear it from Rob, it's gotta be true. He's just the best. Also, Sam Shoemaker. I hear that guy's a pretty good guy, but he stands by the door. That is a Sam Shoemaker joke, which very limited target audience on that. Very, very specific humor. Oh, I'll keep coming back. I hope you do too. So
He doesn't commit to going inside. He stands by the door. He doesn't.
Yeah, Yeah, some people go way far in, but I mean, there's people who need to get in the door. Yeah.
Come all the way in, sit all the way down. Don't stand at the door.
All right. Uh, so our illustration is too ridiculous, but is it? We who have been through the ringer. So one of the things is I am very rarely on top of it, but this time I got a picture of a ringer. This one's like real new and fancy. This is a ringer. Just because for people who did not grow up with ringers, did not see ringers in their home, their parents' home, their grandparents' home, you might be like, what? So this is a ringer. So before they had drying machines, they would hand wash clothes and they would put it through the wringer where it would compress the clothes and wring out the water. This is, you can buy this one on Amazon. That's where I found the picture. I'm like, oh, more expensive than I thought it would be. And so we who have been through the ringer, and that being through the ringer is that idea of like, if some of you, if you grew up with this machine, you know you don't want to get your fingers pinched in it. Oh, that'll smart. Like that'll hurt for a real one, right? Oh, to been through is to get like wrung out. Like we have been in tremendous pain. So we who have been through the ringer have to admit that if we substituted alcoholism for jaywalking, the illustration would fit us exactly. Ooh, feeling a little, little called out, right? Anyone felt a little called out with the jaywalker? Like, ooh, it's ruining my life, and I go back to it. Yes. However intelligent we may have been in other respects, where alcohol has been involved, we have been strangely insane. Now, that strangely insane is the obsession of the mind. So if you're writing in your book, you could make a note, obsession of the mind, because that, I mean, it is insane that I would continue to go back again and again and again to something that was causing me as many problems as alcohol, as drugs, as whatever brings you to the study for you, it's been causing. You know, I'm off on a tangent. I'll land the plane. I'll land the plane. But I talk about how I have an allergy to onions and peppers. Maybe it's just an intolerance. But here's what happens when I have peppers. There is a legit burning that happens in my mouth, and then it happens down into my stomach, and it is an unpleasant sensation. Even happens with bell peppers. Unpleasant. No, thank you. Onions, I just get some real unfun nausea. And so what happens? What happens is I say, that's it. I'm not going to do that again. And then, this is wild, I just don't go to Chipotle. We don't have a Chipotle where I live, so that does make it easier. But you know, I'm not getting the what's the one where they have the tortillas and then it sizzles, and I'm not getting one of those. I forgot the name right now. I'm not getting something. What'll happen is Howard will be in the middle of taking the next paragraph, and I will yell it out. Fajita. It was fajita. Yes, I got it. I'm not having fajitas. I need very gentle fajitas because my tummy can't handle it. Jalapeno, no, thank you. Not for me, right? And so I just say no to it, and that is enough. But I will tell you that a jalapeno has never ever caused me to lose the dignity and the self-respect of my loved one. A jalapeno has never took dreams and goals and hopes away from me. A jalapeno has never ruined my life. A jalapeno has never tore away what little shred of dignity that I had. A jalapeno has never caused that look in somebody's eyes where they are mutual, like at the same time they're mutually horrifically disappointed and terribly afraid. A jalapeno has never caused that. I mean, I don't like what it causes, but it does never cause that. And if a jalapeno had caused any of that, I mean, all it does was a terrible burning nausea. It's burning and vomiting at the same time. And I'm like, no, thank you. By the way, did I vomit when I drank? Absolutely. Absolutely, I did. But the real thing is that I go back to it. Now, why do I go back to it? Now bear with me, because what I am looking for in the bottle is what I come to find in Alcoholics Anonymous. Or what I'm looking for in the pipe is what I come to find in Cocaine Anonymous. I am looking for that. It gives me relief. And so I need to treat the thing in the depth of my soul that is looking for relief. Did it burn anywhere else? To be honest, it doesn't stick in my digestive system long enough to have the effect that it has on most people. It's a up and out rather than an out and through, which, it's just, I'm a puker. Uh, Not the other one. So just in case some people are eating, I don't care if you eat at this big book study. I don't care if you're multitasking this big book study. So I'm going to try to be polite. Yeah, no, it comes up like a lady. Pinkies up. By the way, I will point out that so many of us, in regards to alcohol, that we have assumed the spiritual prayer position that occurs at a roughly 2 to 3 a.m., where we are praying to the porcelain gods, that spiritual prayer position, our head rested on the toilet seat, and we are, bleh, bleh, dear God, make it stop. And at that point, I had no qualms about my intellectual ideas about whether or not there could be a God. I had no resistance to the idea of prayer, no resistance. So I'll point that out. So, uh, it says, so you may think our illustration is too ridiculous, but is it? We who have been through the ringer have to admit, if we substituted alcoholism for jaywalking, the illustration would fit us exactly. However intelligent we may have been in other respects, where alcohol has been involved, we've been strangely insane. The obsession of the mind. It's strong language, but isn't it true? Does my experience match that? Terry, if he were here, he would talk about how this is a book of mirrors. Does my experience match what it's saying in this book? And in this, with this experience of the Jaywalker, and going back to that. Any hoodles, over to Terry, not over to Terry, have Terry on the mind, over to Howard, pew pew.
Sure. Some of you are thinking, yeah, what you tell us is true, but it doesn't fully apply. See, alcoholics, we're always looking for that loophole. And if it doesn't apply 100%, doesn't apply to me. I could still go on doing this the way that I've been doing it. I can beat this thing because it doesn't apply to me fully. I'm not totally pregnant. We have to admit some of the symptoms, but we have not gone to the extremes that you fellas did. Here's a great one. It doesn't matter what you've lost or haven't lost. It doesn't matter what you drink or don't drink. It doesn't matter what you snort or don't snort and how often you do it. It's about our relationship with these chemicals in terms of power, choice, and control. We don't have any of that. So this notion of a high bottom or a low bottom is bullshit. We all drink the same way, but we get drunk the same way by believing in a lie. Okay? So to say I haven't gone to the extremes you guys did, I'm still looking for loopholes. Nor am I likely to, for we fully understand ourselves so well after what you told us, such things cannot happen again. Self-knowledge. How's that? An ineffective, inadequate higher power, self-knowledge. We've been told about several different inadequate, insufficient higher powers. Self-knowledge is one of them. Human aid. We are beyond human aid. P.S. Fellowship is human aid. If we're beyond human aid, fellowship alone is insufficient. How about fear? Fear is an inadequate, insufficient higher power. How about going all the way back to the doctor's opinion? Frothy emotional appeals. They may work for a while. My father's begging me to stop work until the pressure went off. Everyone is okay. Nobody's on my back anymore. I can go back to doing what I was doing because it's an inadequate, insufficient higher power. Continuing. We've not lost everything in life through drinking, so I don't have to do anything about it. Oh, wait, does it say that in your book? It does say it in mine because I wrote it in. I don't have to do anything about it because I haven't lost everything. And I certainly don't intend to. Thanks for the information. Kiss my ass. I'll give it back to you.
It really is that. You know what I mean? It is about a polite go F yourself as you can get. And I actually so appreciate this paragraph because I talk so much about how the book is going to meet us where we're at. The book does not expect me to have perfect openness, open-mindedness, willingness to be perfectly, I am surrendered, sponsor me. You know, like it meets me in my resistance. You know, and one of the things as you were reading, Howard, that just struck me, where it's like, I certainly do not intend to. What is wild is, and it's exactly what you were talking about, inefficient higher powers, ineffective higher powers. My intention to not drink, drug, pick up, act out, my intention has no effect. And there's so many times I've worked with people that are like, but I don't intend to drink, or I won't let that resentment take me out. And I'm like, you don't have the choice. You don't have the choice. So yeah, a polite FU. So the book is going to meet us in our polite FU and take us where we need to go. It says that may be true. So we're not hammering home. We're meeting with grace. That may be true of certain non-alcoholic people who, though drinking foolishly and heavily at the present time, are able to stop or moderate because their brains and bodies have not been damaged as ours were. So there are people who do not have this illness. And thanks for the information. Thanks for the fellowship. Thanks for the, probably not thanks for the warning, but thanks for the warning. Thanks for, I'm good. I'm good. Off I go. And they're able to do it. But the actual or potential alcoholic, just a little fun fact is in the early days when they were beginning to put together the big book or the book Alcoholics Anonymous, there was going to be a chapter to the potential alcoholic. It was never written, but they had that idea of it, which I was like, oh, because I always related to the potential alcoholic because I was a little bit pregnant, as Howard was saying. You know, I'm just a little bit, you know, I'm not that bad. I just got like little baby alcoholism. Little baby alcoholism. So I'll do 12-step light. You know what I mean? Which is not doing those steps. And
Stay away from me. I don't want you to get your alcoholism on me. So stay away from me.
yeah. Yeah. And I will say that alcoholism is contagious, just so you know. You know how you pick it up? You get it through the ears, listening at meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because I'll tell you, I wasn't an alcoholic when I came to AA. I wasn't an addict when I came to CA. I caught it from you. You guys gave me that alcoholism. I already had it. But I will point out that is the only time in my life I'm like, I got potential. It's potential alcoholic. Nowhere else am I grandiose enough to be like, I got potential. Potential alcoholic, potential crackhead, that's me. Potential. But the actual or potential alcoholic, with hardly an exception, will be, and this is in italics. Italics didn't cost anymore, but they are for emphasis, will be absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. So it's in italics. This is important. An alcoholic cannot stay sober on knowing. Cannot stay sober on knowing they're an alcoholic. Knowing, I mean, ever hear, oh, you can't stay sober till you get your step one. Step one is I'm going to drink again. Step one is I'm going to use again. How do I stay sober on that? I can't stay sober on I'm going to drink. That creates quite a conundrum, right? An alcoholic or an addict or whatever brings you to this study cannot stay sober based on what we know. And if you're here, if you're like, but how we stay sober? How we stay sober is the results of the actions we take. The spiritual experience that happens is the result of the 12 steps. Just I was not always, but just when my little boop, boop, boop. Thoughts, have thoughts. I'm like, here you go, here they are. That's what's happening in my brain. You guys get it. I'm sorry. Don't worry, I'm tossing it over to Howard in just a second. We'll wrap it up after him. So it says, this is a point that we think is utterly inconsequential. No, this is a point that we wish to emphasize, to and re-emphasize, to smash home to our alcoholic readers. We're not using some like, I mean, if you're in the mood for it. No, this is something we are trying to smash home. You cannot stay sober on knowledge. And it says, as it has been revealed to us out of bitter experience. Now, that bitter experience is watching ourselves and our loved ones go back again and again and again. This book is not intellectuals in their ivory tower being like, "Who I read a research paper." No, it is us, and this is our experience. We're shoulder to shoulder, and this is what we have found. And it says, let us take another illustration. Now, we're not going to do that today, but I'll make sure I toss it over to Howard for anything you wanted to say about that paragraph or any closing remarks. Pew, pew.
Just, you mentioned, but the actual or potential alcoholic. That's the only thing I ever did that lived up to my potential. And my report cards always said the same thing in the comments place, that Howard has such potential if he only applied himself. Well, I finally applied myself and I made the grade here. I lived up to my potential when it came to being an addict and an alcoholic. And I love that you pointed out that it's not an intellectual exercise. This is not an intellectual exercise, and we have to smash it home just like we did back on page 30. On page 30, paragraph 2, we're told that the delusion that we're like other people or presently may be has to be smashed. There's a lot of smashing going on in this particular chapter, but that's another point we have to smash home. But self-knowledge, once again, is not enough. Thanks. Thank you for inviting me, Paige. Had a lot of fun.
Doing that. It was a lot of fun. It was. All right. What I'm going to do is and I put my little delusion smashers thing in the chat. It's almost as though there was also a story in the back called the car smasher. Look at all those smashers. I will stop the recording and not go on my smashing tangent. And we'll wrap it up with a prayer. So thank you, everyone.